Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What's up, you guys? Dana White's Contender Series Week 2 prediction video coming at you guys now. We're going to be having all 5 fights taking place. Luckily enough, all fighters did make weight. They all look good to go. If you're new to the DWCS breakdown videos, the way we go about doing it, we start at the bottom of the card. We work our way up to the top. After we break down each and every fight, we slide over to the stare downs. We'll have that playing here on the side, and we'll talk about how the fighters looked as far as how they look at the weigh-in and how they look squaring off with their opponents. You guys know I always get pumped up for the stare down, so we'll do that as well. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. You can expect a lot of MMA betting related content, or you could even just say MMA related content in general. It doesn't even have to be just in regards to betting if you don't bet. So please do subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button here. You guys can catch me on all my social media on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _. And you could also catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller. All right, guys. So, and one other quick side note, you can expect UFC Fight Night Santos versus Hill for that episode to be put up here on the channel very soon, hopefully by tonight as well. All right, guys. So, with no further ado, we're going to jump right into the first fight. We got Billy Goff taking on Shimon Smotrosky. We've seen Smotrosky fight on Dana White's Contender Series before. In fact, I did fade him when he took on Mike Mallet, who Mike Mallett's doing his thing in the UFC now. Of course, the Team Alpha Male product. I'm very familiar with Smotrosky, the Israeli fighter. He's very long and rangy for the division. Still very young, only 21 years old still. Of course, I believe he was 21 at the time he fought in Contender Series as well. It was close there. Yeah, he was still 21. Now he takes on Billy Goff. If you guys aren't familiar with Billy Goff, he is a fighter that holds a lot of gold. He is the CES double champ. He has belts in both and 2 divisions, excuse me there. Also a Cage Titans champ, a former Cage Titans champ. So, I mean, this guy is really a highly touted prospect. If you had the pleasure of breaking down tape on him, it's fun to watch. He goes in there, he bullies his opponents. He has some good wrestling, some good grappling, loves to work the ground and pound. I think that he's a promising fighter. Comes in phenomenal shape. Now, Smotrosky is definitely going to have that range advantage in this fight. I'm going to cut to the chase. I don't see Smotrosky really being able to utilize that to his advantage and do anything from the outside. I have not been impressed with Smotrosky's striking. We could talk a little bit about what he's been doing. I mean, I know he's coming off a knockout victory against William Macario, who is a former UFC fighter. If you remember him, I believe he also was on the Ultimate Fighter Brazilian series. I don't want to be rude, but I guess somewhat of a UFC reject. And if you watch the tape, if you watch that fight, William did not seem like he was really eager to get a victory in that fight at all, in my opinion. Smotrosky ended up hitting him with a little combo, put him down, and ended up finishing the fight. But to me, it just was not that impressive. Although Billy doesn't necessarily show flashes on the feet, I think that he's still developing. I think he's a better athlete here. We're going to get to the stare downs a little bit later, but Goff definitely looks like he is a little undersized, or he's definitely the smaller fighter. But I think that he'll be able to close the distance, and I think that in those grappling and wrestling exchanges, it could actually benefit him. I think he can get in on Smotrosky, get him down to the mat, and control him down there and rain down some ground and pound. Of course, we got to jump back to that Mikey Mallet fight that Smotrosky had. In that fight, he was finished very, very quickly, got dropped, and then put right into that guillotine. And, you got to wonder how his mental is going to be going back into the same facility that he just was in 9 months ago and got finished extremely fast. So, I mean, he seems like he's a tough dude, but at the end of the day, I'm definitely going to be going with Billy Goff to win the fight here. Billy Goff right now on Bovada.lv is a -179. I've seen him a little bit higher on some other books. I've seen him as high as -220. So depending on what book you're looking at, actually on Bovada.lv right now, you can get a pretty solid line if you're feeling Goff there. We'll also take a quick look at the 2 losses that Billy Goff has on his resume. One of them was via against Cameron Lachinov. You guys know Lachinov from the Ultimate Fighter show. He's a pretty solid fighter that was early in his career. And then the Jonathan Pico fight. Jonathan Pico, I'll pull him up real quick. And that fight was stopped due to a cut. Pico, he's a hard fighter to gauge. Not a lot of experience here. He does have a victory over Bobby King, if you guys are familiar with him. And his lone loss was against Ray Cooper III. So it's kind of hard to gauge what's going on with him. Obviously, not a lot of fights and then recognizable names there. So, maybe Goff just had, a little bit of a rough path there early in his career. Maybe that 7-2 record, although it doesn't seem that impressive, maybe it really starts to smooth its way out. I think he gets the job done here. Wouldn't be shocked if he gets a contract. We'll see about that. Maybe he reigns some ground and pound, gets that finish in the first or second round. That's kind of what I'm seeing there. And that's going to be my pick here. And from a betting standpoint, do I recommend you attack the line? You probably want to get a line like I pulled up on Bovada.lv rather than attacking a -220 line like we do see on some other books. And in that case, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem if you guys felt like putting some money on that. I think he should get the job done there. But again, you guys know how it goes in the show. Just be a little wary. I do want to see more of Goff. And then you got a fighter in Smotrosky that's so young still. I am curious to see if we see any leaps in his skill. But I feel more comfortable saying Goff goes in there and actually gets a finish. We got the big boys throwing down here in the heavyweight division. We got Waldo Cortez Acosta taking on Danilo Suzart. Waldo Cortez Acosta, another fight that we're going to get to in a little bit when we get to those stare downs. He was pretty much towering over Danilo, who is at 6 foot. Waldo is 6'4". We got an 80-inch reach recorded for Waldo. We don't got nothing here for Danilo. Waldo is going to be the larger man. Although Danilo is a big man himself, he's a little bit more stacked, if you know what I mean. He's a little bit more stout. Danilo, right now, I believe he is the Brave champion. He just took that in his last fight, and pretty much a lackluster victory, in my opinion, where he took out Benjamin Sihich, I guess we'll say that, Sihich. And that was over at Aries, not Brave. That was over at Aries. That's where he did take the heavyweight champion. If you guys are familiar with Aries, I believe the promotion takes place in Africa, I do believe. I know Juan Adams fought over there. And Danilo Suzart, he is 9-1 as a pro. He is extremely wild on the feet, throws his shots. Forget about from the hip. He throws his shots from his back, literally reaches back behind him and just swings his fist over like he's throwing a sledgehammer at the carnival trying to win a teddy bear. He really throws some haymakers. I did see him connect a couple times in his fights, but overall, you can't really expect those types of shots to land on higher level opponents. And, speaking of higher level opponents, Waldo is a fighter that has a professional boxing experience. He seems to be more polished on the feet, in my opinion, in regards to his striking overall, over on the MMA side of things as well. He's 6-0. I feel more comfortable definitely siding with Waldo in this fight. Like I said, more technical on the feet. I expect him to touch Danilo up a little bit as Danilo looks for that big power shot. Danilo's probably going to land he's going to need to land a really big shot to try to shake things up if he's going to get his hand raised, in my opinion. Now, you're probably thinking, what's up with Waldo's takedown defense? He's a boxer, has his ground game and whatnot. Danilo being Brazilian, you probably think he has some type of ground game. I haven't seen too much from Danilo down on the mat, nothing that was overly impressive. I have a feeling Danilo will be more willing to engage on the feet. I think he's going to want to put on a show. He has that kind of personality. And Waldo, although he's not technically sound there was one fight where I saw him taken down, and the way that he got up to his feet was very impressive. It was almost Derek Lewis-esque, if you know what I'm talking about. Just stood right up with his opponent hanging on him. So he has that natural strength. Needs to continue to work on his technique, though, but I don't think he'll have any real problems as far as being smothered down on the mat, and I think that he'll win the striking exchanges. Right now, Waldo Cortez Acosta is a -460 on Bovada, so you guys see he's a big favorite here, and there's been some action coming in on him after they saw the two men square down at the weigh-in. After people saw that, he's just a much larger, naturally larger man, and I will pick Waldo to get the job done. Does he get the finish or does it go to a decision? As of recently, Waldo's been knocking some dudes out, man, over in LFA, right? He's coming off 2 knockouts in a row. Actually also has a Kimura on his record early on, but I wouldn't hold that so high. I wouldn't expect to see any type of wizardry down in the mat from him there. I think that was more of just fighting a lower level opponent. Does Waldo get the knockout? I don't feel overly confident there. I wouldn't be shocked if Danilo shows to be a tough outing. You got to know how some of these fighters are. Some of these more stout dudes in the heavyweight division, they could take a shot. There's been a track record of fighters like that have this type of build that are pretty durable. His one loss was via decision. It's never been put out as a pro. I'll take Waldo Cortez Acosta to win a decision, actually, even though it's up in the heavyweight division and they're probably going to slug it out. It might be an entertaining fight where they kind of go to war, but both men kind of hold up. We'll see how it goes. Francis Marshall taking on Connor Matthews. These fighters are very similar, almost mirror images of themselves. Both 5-0 as pros. Similar in height. We don't have a reach on Marshall, but I'm willing to bet that they're pretty close there as well. Marshall's a little bit younger, but both these guys definitely like to get the job done with their grappling and their submission skills. And they both like the rear naked choke. Francis Marshall, as of recently, pulling off a rear naked choke over Michael Lawrence, pulling off another rear naked choke against Mike Taylor, pulling off another rear naked choke against Chris Cantu, and then take a look over at Connor Matthews, pulling off a rear naked choke over Josh Hardy, Jay Ellis, Joshua Maurer, pulling off a neck crank on Rob Fowler. I mean, these guys like to attack the neck there with their subs. They are polished up with their grappling, and I really believe it's definitely the bread and butter of both of their games. I am interested to see how this fight's going to take place on the feet, who gets the better of those striking exchanges. I think that could play a big factor and who actually gets the job done here. Francis Marshall, when you break down tape on him, I'm not impressed with his striking. To me, he seemed very stiff. We talked about his age, how he's very young. I mean, there's definitely room for growth there. And you guys know how it goes in this show. We definitely see rapid growth from these fighters when you're breaking down early tape on them compared to when they step in on Tuesday night. But Francis Marshall needs to, without a doubt, step up his striking. If he's going to even get a contract, say he goes in there, pulls off a beautiful sub, then he gets thrown in the UFC with these killers. He could really be a fish out of water on the feet. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but I need to see more from his striking. Where on the other hand, I saw Connor Matthews go in there and actually throw some devastating strikes, some beautiful knees, elbows, all types of stuff, dropping his opponent, falling down to the mat and finishing him. It was a lower level fighter, but I still like the fact that I saw that tape of him looking ferocious and technically sound on the feet. He had that killer instinct there. I could foresee him getting the better of the striking exchanges. Now, if I had to pick who gets the better of the grappling, maybe Francis ends up getting the better down there if the fight does go down to the mat. But a lot of times you get these fighters that are both good at one specific type of style, and they kind of nullifies itself. Two grapplers, grappler versus grappler, you'll start to see them bang it out on the feet. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to play out here, but don't forget as well, Connor Matthews knows what he's doing down on the mat too. So Francis tries to push that type of style of fight. Don't be surprised if Connor gets a sub himself, because he shows that he has a nose for the finish down there as well. So give me Connor Matthews. Give me the slight underdog here. We'll pull up the live line here on Bovada. Connor Matthews, a +110. Give me the dog here for this pick, and should be an interesting fight. I'm really curious to see which man gets his hand raised at the end of that fight. Almost mirror images of themselves to an extent. So that should be a good one. Shannon Ross taking on Vinicius Salvador. Now this was an entertaining stare down, which we'll be getting to in a second. This was an entertaining stare down. These guys were really in each other's faces. Fight taking place in the flyweight division. The flyweight division, you guys know, I feel it really has came around. It could always use some more added talent. So, I mean, I would love to see one of these guys really thrive on the show and get a contract. Shannon Ross, fighting out of Australia, 33 years old, already has 18 pro fights on his resume. He's no spring chicken. He's ready for an opportunity to fight in the octagon. He's going to have to show up tomorrow and take the bull by the horns here. Vinicius Salvador, 13-4 for an age. We don't have an age on him. I'm willing to bet that he's somewhere up there in the high 20s, maybe 28, 27. I don't think he's necessarily a really young fighter. Seems to be oozing with confidence. Again, I'll reflect back to the stare down. He's the one that really engaged Shannon there. He seems like he's ready to bring the fight. Now, when I break down tape on him, I was not overly impressed with his stand-up. He seems to be very cocky and confident, hands down low, throwing some shots from the hip. Saw him get tagged up a bit there on the feet. I think that there's a realistic possibility that he gets a little cocky there and Shannon tags him up a little bit. Shannon's a little bit more technically sound. But the reason why I'm leaning towards Shannon's way mostly actually is his wrestling. He showed to me that he has some pretty solid wrestling for the division, and I could see him potentially getting on top, reigning some control time, using some ground and pound and whatnot, and solidifying a couple rounds there. Now Vinicius is not necessarily a fish out of water down there. I think that he's decently well versed from what I was able to pull up, but I still got to lean. I got to lean Shannon Ross in this fight. I think that he just has more avenues to take this fight. We take a look at the live line. He's almost a 3-1 favorite. So it seems like a lot of people are seeing what I see or what I saw when I broke down tape as well. I think that Ross just has more avenues to get this fight done with the wrestling in his back pocket and being a little bit more technically sound on the feet. And but I would not be shocked if Vinicius goes out there like a wild man and lands a wild shot and kind of shakes things up. But I would expect Ross to kind of level things out and take this fight. I do think that Ross gets the job done here. The line, it's kind of high. Taking place in the flyweight division, a fight like this, it wouldn't be shocked if it played out a little bit closer than some are expecting. I wouldn't be shocked, but I will take Shannon Ross to get the job done. And then in the main event, we got Charlie Campbell taking on Chris Duncan. I really like this fight. Both fighters seem to be very promising. A lot of you guys probably are familiar with Chris Duncan. Remember, he had an opportunity on the show already where he was finished in brutal fashion by Vyacheslav Borishev. You guys know him as Slava Claus. And that was a fight where I truly believe that Chris Duncan underrated him a little bit, underestimated him, and was a little bit too willing to engage on the feet. We know a little bit more about Slava Claus, and he is really polished up there, and he made Duncan pay. And we've also seen that Slava Claus has some holes in his grappling. I felt like if Chris Duncan would have had a different game plan, that fight could have played out a little bit differently. Since that loss, Chris Duncan does have a victory under his resume here. He took out Jonathan Carlos via unanimous decision. Now, Chris Duncan has been training down in Coconut Creek over at American Top Team for this fight. He's been over there for a little bit now, at least a couple weeks, I do believe, which is a great thing going into a big fight like this. Charlie Campbell training at a Team Longo Serra, so another powerhouse gym. And Charlie Campbell, a lot of people have high praise for this kid. Charlie Campbell already has fights over in CFFC and Bellator. So he's been doing his thing. He's been very active as well. In the last year, he has 3 fights. So a very active year for him. Coming off finishes against Nick Guletti, finishes over Vadim Ogre, and also coming off that knockout finish in his last fight over Guilherme dos Santos. So you like that he's having a knack for that finish as of recently. When I was breaking down some of his older tape, kind of has a little bit of a pitter-patter type style on the feet. But as you see, as of recently, the striking's coming around, starting to get a little bit more pop on his strikes. And only 27 years old, both these fighters, pretty much primed here. Chris Duncan, 29. I know he's very, very, very game for this opportunity. I saw an interview with him going into this fight, and he's cool as a cucumber. He's ready for this opportunity. He feels that it's his time now. He feels he's the better fighter, and I like that confidence that I saw from him in that interview. Like I said, though, Charlie Campbell, this kid does seem to be the truth, at least as far as a fighter that is worthy of getting a contract in the UFC. I think that he's worthy of that. We're going to see what type of performance he could put on tomorrow night. I've been a little bit back and forth with my selection for this fight. If I'm being honest with you guys, I was going to go with Chris Duncan, but the more I've been prying and doing more research, I think that this kid Charlie is the truth. And I think that he's going to end up getting the job done. And one other major factor why I'm siding with him is that, Chris Duncan, in his fight on Dana White's Contender Series, and just in general, if you break down tape on him, he keeps his head on the center line a little bit too much. And I could see Charlie just being a little bit more fluid with his movement and making him pay a little bit more so, working the body as well. Team Serra Longo, they love to work the body. They're not just head hunting out there. I think his striking will be technically sound, and I think he'll probably get the better there. I think this has the makings of being a very entertaining fight. I feel more comfortable going with Charlie Campbell here. You guys know I'd love to give you another dog. I think the dogs are always live on Dana White's Contender Series, but I got to go with Charlie Campbell based on the research I did. I will take him to win the fight. He's a minus 170 right now with the comeback on Chris Duncan at plus 130. In the interview, Chris Duncan was warning you guys the value is on him, but if you bet on him, he says make sure that if you let him know you made some money on him after he wins, you should buy him a steak. I saw them talking about a little something like that, so we'll see about that. I got Charlie Campbell to win the fight in the main event. All right, so let's take a look at how these men look. As I told you, Smotrosky, he's a big boy for the division, but Billy Goff, looking pretty muscular as well. I think he closes the distance and uses his strength on the inside there. Both men looking to be in phenomenal shape for the fight. A little bit of respect given there. Look at Sean Shelby all Gucci'd out. All right, now check this out. We got Waldo coming in here. Waldo is the big boy we talked about. Look at the size difference here. Waldo is a big dude, and you see his opponent a little bit more stout, right? A little bit more Roy Nelson-esque. It should be a good fight. I'm curious how that fight plays out. I could really see both men brawling it out on the feet. So we'll see how that fight goes. Who's this guy? Let's see over here. I don't know if you guys can even see him actually, but in the corner of the video, we got some security guard. I don't know what he's doing over here. All right, and then we got Francis Marshall taking on Connor Matthews. As I told you guys, these guys are very similar in a lot of ways. Almost to the T. Even their haircut's similar. Although it looks like Connor has the better do there. But that fight right there, man, that's just straight up a reflection fight. These guys are going to be fighting each other in the mirror. Take note of how that fight takes place. It should be a fun one. And then here we go. We got the flyweights, Vinicius, Salvador, and Shannon Ross. And you're going to see Vinicius get up in his grill a little bit. Almost looking like the bad character from Apocalypto. If you guys seen that movie's a classic. If you haven't, I promise you, watch that movie and you will not be disappointed. Apocalypto, one of the best movies of all time. Directed by Mel Gibson. That's in the top 5 for me. Apocalypto. Seen that movie about 50 times. Might watch it again tonight. And then in the main event, 2 very promising fighters, Charlie Campbell and Chris Duncan. I'm very excited for that fight. I think both those fighters have potential UFC fighter written all over them. Even if Chris Duncan drops this fight, loses 2 fights on the show, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if he ended up working his way back to the UFC somehow. Maybe get a couple more big fights outside, or at the very least get another shot over in Bellator. I believe he has a fight over in Bellator early in his career. Seems like he's holding on strong to his aspirations to fight in the octagon. But one way or another, the point I'm making is I think Chris Duncan's a good fighter, and I'm excited for that main event. So this is going to wrap up Dana White's Contender Series Week 2. I know you guys are excited for these fights. As you guys know, if you want to work with me for my official plays, you guys reach out to me. I'm always here to work with you guys, and I appreciate all of your support more than any of you guys know. All right, guys? On that note, we'll sign out. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.